Here we are in one of the last little pockets of old growth forest left in southern Ontario, and this here is a kingnut, otherwise known as a shellbark hickory. They're quite uncommon here in the south of Ontario because they were targeted for logging earlier on in the settlement phase, but they're actually a tree that was known by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and those members of it, like the Wendat and the Huron, as the anti-famine tree. So where this tree was planted and tended in great numbers as part of their food forest designs, no human ever starved. These trees produce a copious amount of nutrient-dense nuts that offer healthy fats, minerals, vitamins, and medicinal compounds that prevent neurodegenerative diseases and cancer. So when the French settlers came, the Jesuit priests, and the military officers, they found there was very little of those diseases that were plaguing their European populations back home, and they were surprised when they shared what one of their main food sources was that they had stashed and collected in their baskets over the winter. It was the kingnut. So this is one of these trees that we can team up with to build food resilience for our communities. These trees can live well over 200 years, being productive for over a century and producing copious amounts of food with very little inputs, no synthetic fertilizer, no irrigation required, just abundance. And it's a mother tree, so it brings in biodiversity and supporting the other non-human beings that are part of our communities too. Now I go around in the winter looking for these trees. I look for the signs, which is these beautiful big nut casings that are a lot bigger than their shagbark cousins. And that's an indicator that this one had a mast year recently, dropping copious amounts of food on the forest floor. And that means I can come back in the future, I can collect the seeds for propagating, maybe do some foraging, and make sure that these trees go on into the future to feed the 7th generation that comes after us. In Diana Bursford Kroger's new book called Our Green Heart, she talks about this tree, otherwise known as the kingnut or the shellbark, and how it can provide food resilience for our future and help to bring stabilization to the soil and our ecosystems. In her chapter called The Magic of the Kingnut, she says, "I have a scientific interest in the walnut. In particular, hickories. This genus, Caria, consists of a small pool of 20 to 25 species worldwide. The walnut has had an intense relationship with the terroir of the Americas for a long, long time. The solar exposure on the two continents is very strong. The evidence of this photonic abundance is seen in the crop of nuts these trees produce every year. Every aspect of the walnut's comfortable ride in the sun is unique to these trees. I look for kingnut regularly in my travels. It is an easy tree to spot, even at a great distance, because the bark curls. The mature kingnut is a feast for the eyes. Long plates of its bark become repelled by its cambium and curl into 6-foot lengths. It is said that where these trees grow as mature mother trees, they are among some of the last left in Canada. Diana, one bright morning, received a small box that had been sent by express by one of the rangers from the Windsor area. She opened it and to her delight found 5 kingnuts beaming up at her from the protection of their light brown winter overcoats. Let me describe these magnificent anti-famine nut trees. They like to have Burr Oak as companions for life. The kingnut can grow in a wide range of soils, from dry and sandy to river bottom. A nearby spring or standing pool of water will not deter them. The tree is shorter than its sibling, the shagbark. The kingnut is also stouter, with much heavier branches. The leaves are bigger and give a much better shade. And the tree wears a winter dress of the dry connecting points where the leaves would connect onto last year's growth. The kingnut can also hybridize with the pecan to make much bigger nut meats. Once upon a time in the not so distant past, the food of the walnut family, including the hickories, fed North America. Thriving on this bounty was the American mound builder culture and the great savanna food forest builders of here in Ontario. Rolling plains of meadows interspersed with food-bearing trees. This culture's creative and scientific abilities far surpassed the efforts of any European culture of that time. And it successfully fed its people on forest food. The nut trees soaked up the sun, just like grass-fed beef, and spilled the 3 essential fatty acids into food that was twinned with health in body and mind. The kingnut was central to its food chain. the American giant of food production. People called it the anti-famine tree, because where these trees matured and grew, famine did not exist. It is a medicine tree of great importance. The pharmacopoeia of the Cherokee people alone employed the medicine of this tree for pain relief, viral remedies, and the extraordinary ability of a bark infusion to improve the suppleness of long bones and prevent injury in various sports. And by the wilderness gardening of these nut trees of the savanna, they were able to harvest nuts to deliver the high-quality, first-class protein into their diet, doubling the protein from the venison. Today, Kingnut could be reintroduced as an aid to agriculture in North America. If it is planted in hedgerows, the trees would shade the fields from excessive ultraviolet exposure from the sun. The tree's roots would recycle the subsoil mineral, wealth, back into the surface layer of the soil. Kingnuts make the ecology of the soil habitat around them more stable for insect life. Pollinators can tap abundant supplies of food and resins for protection. Some of the insects and a few birds that use the resins as antibiotic and antifungal wallpaper to protect their offspring as they develop. They form a housekeeping that keeps diseases at bay. Birds multiply in the tree's presence, ingesting the vitamin D vital for egg production while preening in the canopy. The kingnut's large leaves sweep the air of particulate pollution, including isotopic radioactive reductions, and their shade protects amphibians from genetic damage. These trees, so carelessly removed from the North American landscape, are capable of doubling the plant-based protein of any farming operation. Making nut milks, nut creams, nut cheeses, and nut tofu can be a new industry for the farming community. In addition, recent research from the District of Southern India has shown that old-style growing of woody perennials like the kingnut alongside agricultural crops can increase carbon dioxide sequestration from the atmosphere by 34%. What benefits nature benefits farms. What benefits farms benefits humanity. The kingnut is a gift. We have only to accept it.